Let's go to Mark Cuban, who was on the Patrick Beverly podcast. Do we know who his partner is on that show?
Does it matter?
I just want to know because he seemed like a random guy that just
I'll
just happened to be there.
I'll find out. We're real disrespectful with Rone.
Who?
Rone?
You thought I was being disrespectful?
Rone? I don't know I'm reading it. I don't know how it's pronounced.
Okay, good for you. You figure that out. But Cuban's on the Patrick Beverly podcast, and listen to what he had to say describing how the Mavericks finished out last year and why it necessarily wasn't Luka and Kyrie's fault. Take a listen here.
You made that trade.
Why?
The fit, I didn't know if it was going to fit.
Yeah.
Them together, they both.
Well, a lot of people don't think it, so when you look at last year, we had issues that had nothing to do with Kyrie or Luka playing together. When they played together, I was just reading something. They're like 900 possessions that they played together, and they were 60% net effective field goal rate plus 4-point whatever, top 5 combo in the league when they played together, just between injuries and everything. And we just didn't have a team that was committed to the roles, right? If like the year before when we went to the Western Conference Finals,
I was locked the in, boy.
For sure, right?
You could tell. Yeah.
Everybody knew their role. Everybody just played their role perfectly.
Yeah.
This past year, that wasn't the case. And it wasn't Kyrie or Luka. They knew their roles, right? But once other guys start playing for themselves or not playing for the team, every mistake that you can possibly have is just magnified to no end. So we made some changes, a lot of changes this year on and off the court. And
I like what y'all did.
Do I need to go ahead and pull up the 2022-23 roster? Do I need to do that real quick?
For the Dallas Mavericks?
I got you. Don't even worry about it.
Okay. So we're
going to do some investigative journalism right quick.
So let's just put it out there. 877-881-1053.
Who y'all think?
Who do y'all think Mark Cuban was talking about? Because he clearly absolved Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. They're
clearly
good.
Not their fault.
They're good here.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think?
Dave Burt.
Who do you think Mark Cuban was talking about? Let's go around the room. Medford, as Reg runs down the other roster, who do you think he was talking about?
Oh, man. You know what? I would love to think it's Dwight Powell, but they're best friends. They probably have breakfast together every other morning.
Dwight Powell is the most upstanding citizen on that roster.
He's going to be president of this organization one day. Just know that.
He might be president of the United States. Actually, he can't be. He's Canadian.
He's Canadian.
I was going to think of a troll name, but it's Christian Wood. It's Christian Wood.
That's one. I can think of another.
That's a terrific candidate.
That's a great way to take that one off the board. Good answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
The other answer, and the one that came to my mind first, because, Christian Wood just seemed too easy.
Poster child for this.
He's still on the roster, so I don't know how loud I should say this. Hello, Mr. Tim Hardaway Jr.
Oh, no.
When we talk about playing a role, and maybe wanting a role that other than the one that is suggested for you or dictated to you, that man like getting up shots. I'm just gonna say that.
Tim Hardaway Jr. has never taken a shot that he didn't like. From the 702, Tim Hardaway. From the 972, JaVale McGee.
Ooh,
JaVale McGee!
Yeah, I'm gonna miss saying it. Well, I'm just gonna keep saying it. From the 702, Reggie Bullock?
Oh wow! Now I feel like we're playing Name a Maverick because
it's a fun game.
Here the MO on Bullock was he's gonna be cold as ice from late October to
early December
to January, about early January. And then
it starts warming through December.
Yeah, it starts to get a little warm in December. It's odd how he got warmer as he gets colder, but whatever. And then by the time you flip the calendar to the next year, he's good to go, shooting threes.
Any chance that Spencer Dinwiddie's involved here?
No,
because he's talking about after. That's
fair.
I found. Look, first of all, let me ask you this: how do you buy into his premise that, look, man, guys just didn't fit into their roles, and that was the issue? Because if it's that simple, that's an easy fix that you look out for this season and you go, okay, the trajectory of this team goes a certain way where you go, this will go fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Guys' roles are clearly defined, it appears, based on what they've done to this roster this upcoming year. For me, the obvious answer here in a lot of ways is Christian Wood. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent, he has become the poster child for what was, in a lot of ways, defensive dysfunction for this team a year ago. And don't get me wrong, Christian Wood was a big part of that. But there were a lot of guys that missed a lot of assignments, and defensively, they were not good enough last year to compete. And by the time you made the trade for Kyrie Irving for the last 20-some-odd games of last year, there were guys scrambling, trying to figure out how to play with two ball-dominant individuals and what those roles look like and defining that on the fly. And then you get to the end of the year, they go ahead and, do the mini tank, which they almost blew that, and find a way to keep their top 10 protected pick. But for Cuban, I think he boiled it down to a little bit more simpler terms than I think what the situation lended itself for, given what was going on last year. Because I think this team is much more capable of understanding what's expected of them, and there is weight that has been removed from this team that should give these guys a much clearer picture on what they're being asked to do, how they're being asked to do it, and the consistency at which they need to deliver it with each game, night in and night out. And that starts obviously with Luka and Kyrie, Grant Williams now coming in as a veteran who's been there, done that in playoff situations, and the hopeful upward growth of Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, among others, that will allow this team to feel a little bit better about what they can do night in and night out.
All right, so I'm interested. I mean, it seems like you do buy in somewhat to what Mark Cuban is saying there, and what it seems to me is that there is a wide berth of where this team can go this year. ESPN about a week ago put out some of their predictions for this upcoming season, and a couple of the questions that they had, one was team turnaround, which teams are poised to make a major move. Now, one of the teams is a team that you're very fond of for this upcoming season, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yes. Easy to see why. A lot of young talent, a lot of really good players, and a team that has cohesion, and so in continuity. So it should be able to come together in a really big way. In addition to having an All NBA player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Number 2 on that voting is the Dallas Mavericks. So clearly, a team that is poised to make a major move upwards. The Mavericks, you point to that, talking about the lack of cohesion that was able to be achieved on the fly, but when you talk about the 2 stars that you have, and then also building a better team around what those guys are with more clearly defined roles. Immediately after that is a question about team turmoil. Who are the teams for whom, it could get dramatic, whether it's, wins, losses, those types of things, like who has the opportunity of, maybe falling apart. Number 1, Philadelphia 76ers. Do I need to explain?
Nope.
Number 2, Portland Trailblazers. Again, do I need to explain? Number 3, the Dallas Mavericks, right? So even from a national perspective of people that vote on these things, people that watch these things, that's a wide perspective of different ways that this can go. Where do you see this going, KG? What would you bet in that wide range of the whole thing falls apart or this thing turns around and majestically, considering what they've done and considering maybe this perspective of clearly defined roles or the lack of accepting clear roles being some of the downfall, and now maybe that changing? Where does that fall for you?
Do they have any write-up on that? Just curious.
They don't.
Okay.
And I would really be interested in hearing what the thoughts are. However, yeah, they were pretty closely. I mean, obviously the Sixers ran away with that first place votes when it comes to the team that was going to be dysfunctional, but Mavericks 3rd.
You know where my mind goes with that, honestly? It goes to the head coach and Jason Kidd. Because if you cannot make it work with two top 15 scorers in this league, with a much better roster constructed to be able to play a little bit better defense akin to what you want your team to play it at, and it still doesn't work, now I got to look at Jason Kidd with some side eye, because you got away with it year 1 by getting this team to play above a lot of their heads to get into the Western Conference Final the way that they did. Last year, you took a step back. You tried to resurrect it by getting Kyrie Irving, still trying to figure that out going into this year. If you go into this year with a full training camp, full 82-game season, and you still are not a top 6 team in the West based on the talent that you have on this roster, especially your starting 5, I got to look at Jason Kidd with some real questions about, are you really the guy to lead this team next year beyond this upcoming season when it comes to Luka and Kyrie? Because I don't know if that would be the case in my mind. To me, that's where my mind goes when I hear that.
Yeah, I just found that so fascinating because obviously, I think a lot of what people look at as the possibility of dysfunction starts with Kyrie Irving. And I think that might be outsized in this year. The idea that he would be some level of dysfunctional.
I think year 1, full year 1, he's going to be okay.
I think he's going to be great for this team.
Yeah.
I do kind of buy in that, like, whether the roles work or whether, maybe not even like buying into the roles, but whether you have established roles that will work together properly, when you also consider the idea, and this is something that is, beating a dead horse, that what should be kind of a centerpiece of your overhaul was not really overhauled. And of course, there's still time to maybe make that trade. But you talk about, hey, now you have given the coach the things that he needs. The coach has harped on playing defense and probably playing defense in a particular style. You have 2 negative defenders on the perimeter, and that means that you need to have a backstop, and that backstop currently doesn't exist at center. And so I do wonder if that kind of falls apart in the ways that, like, hey, we're better, but again, there's still a way to eat us on the inside. And if there's that structural foundational piece isn't there, if that ends up making this shaky and ultimately gets it to a point where it falls apart. I feel like that's a stretch a little bit of like the worst case scenario. So I do think that it falls somewhere in the middle of those 2 things, leaning closer to the high end, because again, in the NBA, when you have a top 15, top 10 player, that establishes a floor for you that is just so high that I think that the Mavericks should be fine and be around in that place where we were talking about them at worst in kind of that play-in conversation.
Mark Cuban's appearance on the Patrick Beverley podcast. Take a listen to it. You might find some enlightening pieces of information there. But I just found that particular statement from him to be
from Rome. From Rome.
Is that the guy's name?
That's what I'm going with.
All right, good for him.
Yep.